In game one, it was Chris Paul. In game three, it was DeAndre Ayton. And now tonight, in a home win in game five of the first round, it was Mikal Bridges' night. 31 points, 5 rebounds, 4 blocks. We'll talk about what Mikal was able to do in this game, leading the Suns to victory, and some other keys to a massive win on today's Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a contributor at Suns.com and Dime Magazine, and an insider, so to speak, a credentialed reporter covering the Suns for the past 5 seasons. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen today and every day. It's a lot easier to get up and hit play these days, but we are here for you every single day. Bonus episodes if there's weekend games, which Game 7 would be. So stick around, hit subscribe, scroll down on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, whatever video, if you're watching on YouTube, and hit subscribe, hit follow, and come along for the ride. But let's dive in. 112-97. A massive, very, very satisfying win for the Phoenix Suns tonight at home at the Footprint Center in front of a raucous crowd, an incredible crowd, and a game that really the Suns owned from tip to the buzzer. The only quarter they were outscored in was the third, which was 32-30. Every other quarter they led. They end up winning the game by 15. They get out to a big lead, and they keep their foot on the gas. That is the type of win the Suns needed, the type of win that we all knew they were capable of, most importantly. And the guy who really led the charge tonight was one Mikal Bridges, and that's where we have to start. I have to admit, I did not expect Bridges would be the guy capping off or leading off the show tonight. The big centerpiece today here in segment 1, but he more than earns it. Box score wise, I said at the top, 31, 5 rebounds, 4 blocks, 2 steals. The other box score part that I think is maybe not going to get enough attention that I want to start with is 47 minutes, because the thing about Mikal Bridges that's insane, and I do want to get into specifics of what he did tonight because there was some very good stuff and some new stuff, frankly, is, first of all, he's relentless. You know, I wrote a story for Suns.com early in the season that was about, it was really just me trying to get to the bottom. He had just signed this contract. You know, is he going to be an all-star? What's his potential? Defensive player of the year, all that stuff, very much on the table. But what really, in his essence, what does Mikal do for this team? And talk to assistant coaches, talk to him, obviously, you know, being around the team day to day, all that stuff. What I came away thinking was, it's the day in, day out, tireless work, sacrifice, two-way play. He is the very best version of a glue guy in this league, and he does it on both ends. His offense doesn't always get shine, but to play 47 minutes in this game and to have the energy level seem to ramp up over the course of that game is incredible stuff. I mean, he guarded Brandon Ingram, which we will get to in a second. He, at the end of that game, you were seeing him cut. You were seeing him finish breakaway dunks. You were seeing him just everywhere on the court. And he has a block on CJ McCollum on a 3, which was a little bit of a take that back at Herb Jones, a little bit of a, you know, sort of, here's one to take home with you after you gave us a couple on Sunday. And it just doesn't stop. So it just shows it's another example of what makes him such a special player. And it can be difficult to always see it, but tonight more than deserved for Mikal. So to get into some of the specifics, guards Ingram way more than I anticipated. And a few things caused that. One, Jay Crowder foul trouble for a lot of the game, including late in the game. Actually gets his fifth foul and then doesn't come back in for a while. And Monty ends up going with Payne for a lot of the fourth quarter as the fifth guy out there, Shamet in some spots. And that's in large part because Mikal was able to guard Ingram so well. First by necessity because of that foul trouble, but by the end of the game, he just is doing a great job at it. And so you look at the box score on the Pelicans side, Ingram was a team worst minus 16 in his minutes, which means in a 15-point loss, the Pelicans actually outscored the Suns on average by, or total by, what would it be? 1 during the 7 minutes that Ingram was on the bench. So that's interesting. The bench for the Pelicans continues to be impactful, but he was 7 of 19 from the field tonight, 1 of 5 from deep, and then had 5 turnovers. And that's really where I think you see Bridges' impact. Maybe not on the threes, but the inefficiency. You could feel that Ingram was uncomfortable. Those 5 turnovers are huge because the Suns did indeed blitz and double team Ingram a little bit more, especially when he did run pick and roll from the perimeter. When he was initiating offense, they were able to just force the ball out of his hands or make him uncomfortable when he did decide to shoot it. And that's where you really see the inefficiency and the turnovers become a factor. So when they weren't doubling him and when it was sort of Mikal on an island out there, they did an incredible job. And I give the coaching staff a lot of credit for this too, of forcing Ingram to his left rather than his right. And this is something that Aaron Edwards talked a lot about when we did our recap show of Game 4, just looking at, hey, why is Ingram so comfortable? And is there anything to do? And Aaron said over and over, like, he needs to go left, and he's going to cough the ball up if he's going left. He's going to be less in rhythm. He's not going to be able to get to a comfortable spot on the floor quite as easily. And all that stuff happened tonight. The Pelicans Ingram is a good enough player. I'm not going to say that, blitzing is something that he has never seen before, but that combined with the lack of comfort off the pick and roll, and then, probably some bad luck with some of the, normal shots, just a little bit of a bad shooting night, you could probably say. And then he misses free throws. So all that adds up to he's playing 41 minutes. He ends up jamming his pinky near the end of the game. We'll see what happens going forward. But he is really quieted down by Bridges. And I did not think that would happen at all. That Bridges had struggled against him most of the time that they'd been matched up throughout this series. You had seen Crowder be the guy to really, be the only one who seemed to be able to affect Ingram at all and make him uncomfortable at all. No Torrey Craig in this game, which we'll get to. And then offensively, I talked about this too in yesterday's show, getting you ready for this game, which was, what can the Suns do about the shooting? And I said, hey, the 2 guys to me that have been most effective are, in terms of confidence, consistency, things like that, even if the numbers don't always show it, Cam Johnson, who is shooting 35% coming into this game, and then Bridges, who was 20% from deep, but had been so effective and consistent and confident offensively that I thought, hey, let's get some sets for them, right? And we saw that. Cam didn't have his best game. He was a little bit more effective as an assist guy. And then Bridges was perfect from deep, 4 of 4. So all in all, we saw a lot of what we wanted to see, I think, after Game 4, after the travesty that was Game 4, and Bridges was at the center of all of it, quieting Ingram down, scoring the ball, shooting the ball well, and again, being that energy, just being that heart of this team, that perfect glue guy. So, without Booker, we knew games like this were going to be necessary. Bridges provided another big one tonight in a Game 5 win. We'll talk about more of those adjustments and give some credit to Monty Williams and these players for flipping the script of games 1 through 4 completely on its head and basically answering every single concern that I think Suns fans really had. First, guys, today's show brought to you by Shady Rays. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that gives you the features of $200 sunglasses for a fraction of the price. That means polarized lenses, well-constructed, durable frames, and premium high-end finishes. Something you won't find anywhere else is Shady Rays' insane protection program. Shady Rays includes lost and broken protection on every pair. They'll send you a brand new pair if you lose them, no matter what, and obviously any damage as well. Give them a try, and if you don't love them, you'll pay nothing. It's as simple as that. In addition, 10 meals are donated for each Shady Rays purchase to fight hunger in America, and exclusively for our listeners who head to shadyrays.com and use the code LOCKEDON, you will get 50% off 2 or more pairs of polarized sunglasses. That's code LOCKEDON for Shady Rays' best deal of the season. 50% off 2 or more pairs of Shady Rays sunglasses. Again, that's shadyrays.com, promo code LOCKEDON. So I went out on a limb and you know, since game 4, I've leaned into the criticism of Monty Williams a little bit more than I ever like to do, because at the end of the day, 2 things are usually true. One is none of us know as much as we think we do about coaching adjustments in basketball. Number 2 is I think the players deserve the most praise and the most blame almost all the time. However, it felt to me like desperation was the theme of Tuesday's show here on Locked On Suns. And it felt to me like Monty was coaching from a position of comfort rather than, a sense of urgency, a sense of desperation. And there were some options staring Monty in the face that he was ignoring, and it didn't make much sense to me. And it allowed the Pelicans to go steal game 4 and embarrass the Suns, quite frankly. And I felt like if it was going to change, if the mood of the series was going to change, Monty was going to have to tap into some of those things. And, I mean, if he didn't do exactly that from top to bottom, he and the players, again, executing what he's doing. And in some cases, I'll talk about player adjustments here in a second, but sticking on Monty, you had a lot of things go well. A better game plan against Brandon Ingram, first and foremost, which we just talked about. Big man rotation that felt a little bit smarter. So Torrey Craig, 0 minutes in this game, which is something that I feel like I've been saying since the Pelicans won game 2, before the Suns won game 3, before game 4 happened and embarrassed everybody. I've been saying Craig just is not being impactful in this series. DNP for him tonight. Bismack Biyombo gets his minutes. And a very typical Bismack Biyombo game where there is no evidence in the box score that he did anything to impact the game. And yet, if you watched it, you felt him in a big way. That he was able to match some of the minutes when Larry Nance was out there, although the Bismack and JaVale pairing for a couple minutes, I believe at the end of the third quarter, got a little ugly. But nevertheless, he was able to keep Nance somewhat in check, a very quiet game from Larry Nance. And he was actually even able to be the 5 when Valanciunas was in there at times. So to me, the best thing you can say about Biyombo in his 8 minutes is that the Suns were a net 0. He just kept things afloat. That's what I've been saying the whole time. It's only 8 to 10 minutes. That's all that you need from Biyombo, just like that's all you were asking for from Torrey Craig. So that was a nice adjustment to see from Monty Williams. And it happened right away. It wasn't like a garbage time thing or, backs against the wall, let's try something crazy. It was part of the game plan, clearly, from the jump. Yes, there was some foul trouble, I'll admit that, but I don't think Crowder's foul trouble is why Biyombo got minutes. If anything, you'd think Craig would be the one to get minutes since he's more similar to Crowder. So very much, tip of the hat to Monty there. The other one is Aaron Holiday played in this game. And again, from the jump, he was in there. Only 6 minutes. Again, he just ate into Cam Payne's minutes just a bit, but it was enough to, as I recommended and thought made sense, he matched some of Holiday's minutes with Jose Alvarado's minutes. And then you get a less impactful Alvarado game. Some of that is just because he took a lot of threes and only made a couple of them, but no assists for him. He wasn't getting to the basket the same way that he was in game 4. And yes, he had the 2 steals. Yes, he forced another 8-second violation on Chris Paul. But I think matching Holiday there, just fighting chaos with chaos, is the best thing to do there. And it worked. Holiday was a -2, but all things considered, you could feel his impact on the game. From a player perspective now, talked about Bridges. Don't feel like it was an adjustment for him so much as just doing more of the same good stuff that he's been doing. We saw more, aggressiveness, inclusion of Ayton into the game plan offensively. Some of the stuff we've been seeing, a little bit less McGee, I think, was good after game 4 when he was getting roasted by Valanciunas a little bit. And so the player stuff, Cameron Payne, I think, is the place that you have to go. Yes, he fouls out. Yes, there was some out of control moments, but that's par for the course. I mean, that's what these types of guys in the NBA do for you, right? His energy is going to get out of control sometimes. He's going to turn the ball over at times. In addition to some of those fouls, he's going to make and take some weird shots. But at the end of the day, he's going to make some big plays at times. He's going to have confidence to the moon, and he's going to rally the troops in a way as well. And so I think we saw a lot of that tonight. 4 of 10 from the field, 2 of 3 from deep, hit a huge 3, which Reggie Miller identified it correctly at the end of the third quarter. The Pelicans cut the lead to 8 with about a minute or so to go. The Suns don't have their best talent out there, although another credit to Monty Williams in terms of the adjustments in this game were Ayton and Chris Paul being staggered more. So I believe Ayton was out there, but Cam Payne walks the ball up the court, gets a pick and roll, gets a screen, pulls up from 3 and makes it, and it extends the lead to 11. The Pelicans don't get a shot off, I believe, in the end of the quarter. So the lead potentially could have been as low as 6, and Payne just kind of giving that dagger right there, at least the quarter dagger, it extends it to 11 and makes the course of the game, frankly, a lot more comfortable for the Suns. So, he did it in the right moments, and he did it efficiently compared to what he had been doing. 12 points in 12 minutes. He's a +3. Very, very good stuff to see. I mean, huge tip of the hat there. I think the other one, just to give credit where credit is due, is Chris Paul. He still infuriated me at one point with the post up on Jose Alvarado that turned into a weird pick and roll with Bismack Biyombo. Not the right thing to do. I don't know why they keep trying to post the Pelicans guards up. That Chris Paul post-ups were not a part of the Suns offense in the regular season, and now they have been in huge amounts in this playoff series. But that aside, Paul has been was very, very good tonight. 1 turnover, 11 assists, 8 of 18. And I think the most important thing from him is he was aggressive from start to finish. He had, I believe, double-digit points in the first quarter. He came out shooting. I think that's huge for him. I think it's huge for him to get into that rhythm early, but I think it's also just the Suns knew they could not afford to get out to a slow start again. We could not have another one of those, sub 20-point quarters on both sides again, because I think that favors the Pelicans. And it also, again, means that Paul is kind of coming out from being just frozen cold in the fourth quarter and having to just snap as a offensive weapon out of nowhere. And that's hard to do. I mean, he can do it. He's proven that for years, but it's hard. So if you could just take shots early and it kills a couple birds with one stone there, why would you not do it? And he did it tonight, and it worked. And that's it. I mean, it's crazy. It was crazy watching this game and seeing, like, if you were to make a checklist out of what Aaron and I talked about on Sunday night and what I talked about yesterday for Tuesday's show, and you just got a lined piece of paper out and wrote each thing down, and we're not unique in any of that necessarily. I'm sure it's a lot of what you guys were seeing too. And you had that out during the game, you would have checked every single box on that entire sheet. Like, Monty and these guys came out and executed to perfection, and that's what they needed to do without Devin Booker from the absolute beginning of this whole thing back in the second half of game 2. But they won a couple anyway, or they won one anyway, and now they look to be back in full form. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the adjustments that we saw on the Pelican side, on the Sun side, and what we can sort of start to expect in Game 6, although obviously I'll have a more in-depth preview for you on Thursday. First, though, guys, today's show brought to you by Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar ever. Best snack ever, I think it's actually fair to say. I'm looking at Built.com right now, Built Bar's website, of course, and they are unveiling their new granola bar. So you have the classic Built Bar, which is covered in 100% chocolate. There's a flavor for everybody, cherry or strawberry or double chocolate, something for everybody, that creamy inside, everything you always have loved in a Built Bar. There's Built Bar Puffs, which are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow and include flavors like cinnamon churro or my personal favorite, lemon cheesecake. And now, as I'm looking at this website now, unveiling the new granola bar, a new experience from Built. And the best part, in my opinion, in your opinion, I'm sure, is despite it being a granola bar, it's still packed with protein, at least 15 grams in every single bar. I went away from granola bars years ago because I thought these are too sugary. They do not have enough nutritional value. It's a waste of a snack. It's not the right type of stuff I want to be putting in my body when I'm working out, when I'm feeling hungry, anything. But Built has cracked the code. They do it all the time. At Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it delicious first, and then they figure out how to make it healthy, how to pack flavors you love into it, and they do it every single time, including the latest granola bar, which I actually have a box of sitting in my pantry. I convinced you guys it was my first time, but it wasn't. Go to Built.com, guys. Check it out. Looking at the granola flavors, white chocolate, chocolate coconut, chocolate peanut butter, delicious, delicious stuff. Use the promo code LOCK15 when you make your purchase to get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Final thoughts here on the Suns' 112-97 victory in Game 5, taking control of the series. It is now win 1 of 2, including a potential Game 7 at home. Thank you all for making Locked On Suns your first listen to get caught up on this game, get ready for Game 6, and keep going on this ride. But a few more things I want to get to. So one is I'm just I will not allow myself to not talk about this Crowder dynamic because he's vital. Like, you will never hear me saying Jay Crowder should not be playing. But I think what this series has sort of shown is Bridges is improving, right? I mean, if you remember this, he was a player last year who averaged 32 points per game in the postseason. He played 47 tonight. He's been above 40 in every single game. He was above 40 in the regular season pretty consistently. And he can do more, right? So I think he was a great shooter last year. He's actually statistically a little down this year, but he's a good shooter. He's a great cutter. He has improved driving to the basket, getting to the mid-range, all that stuff. So he's a more consistent offensive option and a more well-rounded offensive player than Jay Crowder is right now. He is also able to defend multiple types of guys in a way that he maybe wasn't so great at last year. I mean, if you remember, Chris Middleton was a bad matchup for him, and to the point where Devin Booker was taking that matchup, right, that assignment. So Bridges has gotten a lot better and more well-rounded. You have Cam Johnson, who you can say a lot of the same things about, and now you have the kind of, I don't even want to say emergence, because it's this weird thing with Shamet where by no means is he blowing anybody away. He had a boneheaded turnover late in the third quarter on the lob, might have been early fourth quarter, the lob to Bridges that became a turnover. And he's not making shots. It's not like he scored 20 in any of these games, but it feels like Shamet in some ways is the sort of connector, which is a word that we haven't heard a lot. It's one that Monty used to love talking about with Dario Saric and Frank Kaminsky because of their facilitation ability despite being big men. I think Shamet's sort of the same type of piece where he is comfortable on or off the ball. He knows his place in this offense. Seems like he's learned the playbook by now. And things tend to flow offensively pretty well. And I don't think he's too big of a liability defensively, maybe against a team that has more weapons than the Pelicans do. But look, a lot of these guys are coming back down to earth. Trey Murphy didn't even take a shot in this game. Jose Alvarado was, pretty inefficient as he usually is. Herb Jones, the same thing, which has been a trend now for a couple of games. The rookies not being able to really make an impact offensively. So Shamet's not going to be a liability. So with all that said, Crowder got in foul trouble. That's why he only played 23 minutes. He was in everybody's face. He was doing the Jay Crowder thing. His defense was solid. I'm not taking any of that away from him, but I do a game where the Suns were able to win big in spite of him, even without Devin Booker. It's sort of like a proof of concept of, hey, Monty, if there is a series where Crowder continues to be cold like this, or maybe his defense doesn't match up quite as well, like in the Mavericks series, I'm kind of interested. They play small. They have a lot of guards on the floor. He's going to have to be doing a lot more perimeter defense than he is interior or, secondary ball handler type of guys. He may have to guard Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, I think that there is an opportunity here to learn from this and say, hey, we can sort of win in different ways. Jay Crowder may not be as integral to the success of this team as he was last year when he was guarding, everybody from LeBron to Giannis to Paul George and everything in between. I think it's interesting to think about. Maybe not in this series, although it would be nice if he got back on track with the shooting. But just overall, as you see these adjustments and the playoffs sort of march on, things change. Confidence shifts from the coaching staff, from teammates. Scheme changes based on who you're playing series to series and what the opponent is doing and all that stuff. So just, keep it in the back of your head. I told you guys to have the Cam Payne injury in the back of your head. I seem to be right there. So maybe I do have a feel for these things. I just feel like it's interesting. It's catching my eye. Last point here is the double big man stuff. I want to circle back there. So I think Bismack Biyombo can and might very well soon become the backup center for this team. McGee was not very good in Game 4 despite scoring well. He couldn't handle Valanciunas, and he's inconsistent. I mean, he's up and down. I think in a certain type of matchup, maybe if you're thinking about the second round, if it's Rudy Gobert, if it's Dwight Powell, those are guys he can match up with okay. But, when it's something where he's being targeted, he has to guard in the post, he has to guard on the perimeter in space, you start to get into problems when he's not able to just drop back. Whereas, no, Biyombo is not anybody's idea of Draymond Green, but I think he's smaller, so give him the credit. He's, lower center of gravity, all that good stuff. So he's able to look and feel and probably be a little bit more comfortable and impactful out there on the perimeter when he needs to be. But he's also a great rebounder. He plays with energy. He's a physical player. So it's kind of the best of both worlds a little bit, where McGee is sort of a one size fits one. Like he has to be, he's very context dependent. He has to be in a certain environment to really shine. Biyombo seems a little bit more versatile, frankly. So those are more on the Sun side, things to kind of watch for as we finally get this broken glass on the emergency rotation adjustments from Monty Williams. It opens up a whole world of kind of possibilities going forward. I'll talk about the Pelican side, what I could see them doing. I might go back and rewatch some of this game, or obviously hear what each side had to say about it and all that before I really jump to any conclusions, because I obviously, for understandable reasons, I key into what the Suns are doing far more. And aside from some of the Ingram stuff and whatnot, I don't feel like I have a great grasp. So I'll use tomorrow's show to preview game number 6 and talk about what we could see from the Pelicans in a do or die situation. I will just say, I think this might be the last time we see Jackson Hayes start a game. I think that adjustment is probably finally going to happen. Probably finally. I think it is going to happen in game 6. So just something to start to chew on. I'll be back tomorrow, guys. Thank you. A big thank you for spending your night, maybe your morning, whatever it might be, here with Locked On Suns, making it your first listen after Game 5 of the first round between the Suns and the Pelicans. Hope you are feeling good here on this midweek edition of the show, and I'll be back with you guys tomorrow.